Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
For those who don't know, I used to be a tax consultant. I have a law degree, I have an MBA. I did a lot of tax work when I was in law school. I got a job being a tax consultant at a very large firm. The office I was at was based here in Columbus, Ohio. And I was there for about 6.5 years. And it was a good job. It was good pay. It was good everything. I just didn't want to do taxes for the rest of my life. I'm very entrepreneurial. I won't get into that whole story. But I finally decided to leave after 6.5 years, and I left to do something more entrepreneurial, and my first step would be just being an attorney. And I figured, okay, I'm going to get out there. I'm going to get into practice. I've got this whole office of people I worked with. The firm I was at, the office was in a large building downtown. It occupied 5 floors. I was pretty much me there. I was very connected within the firm. I knew people pretty much everywhere and got to be known. Was involved in various, charitable fundraisers or whatever. So I knew people and I was well known. And I figured, okay, if I'm going to start this law practice, then I'm going to go back to this firm and I'm going to network with the people who are there. Who do they know? Who can they refer me to? And I did. I went back and I talked to people that I knew and worked with for one person started with the very same day I started. There were people that I knew for several years. And what was ending up happening is they were sending me to people that I already knew. And what I found is that our networks weren't precisely the same, but there was a lot of overlap. And it made sense. It made sense in hindsight in that when I worked at that firm, we worked a lot of hours. That was the game. You worked a ton of hours and you hung out with those people. You worked with those people. You went to lunch with those people. And on the weekends, Friday night, you have a beer. You might go out with them, their wives or girlfriends. I did a lot with those people. That was my world. I might work 6 days a week. And the day I wasn't working, I was just sitting at home doing nothing, watching TV. And so I didn't have a ton of network outside of there. And my network was wrapped up with people whose network was essentially the same as mine. Not totally the same. There were some introductions, but it was nowhere near as fruitful as I thought it might be. It's interesting. There was a study that was done in the 70s. And actually, I remember my parents talking about it. In the 70s, early 70s, I'm dating myself, middle school. I didn't get in high school until the later part of the 70s. But there was a doctoral dissertation out there by, I forget his name, Gravinetter is his name. But it was entitled How to Find a Job. And what his doctoral dissertation did was he did a lot of surveying of people and how they found their jobs. And it's probably not surprising that most people they found in his research, most people found their jobs not from the help wanted ads. What they determined was most jobs are never really even publicized. And I remember that's what my parents told me. If you're when you get to looking for a job, it's most of the good jobs really never hit the paper. They never are anywhere. They didn't use the term networking. You have to talk to people because people know about them. And so that's what they found is that most people found their jobs through personal connections. Again, not really surprising that it was that way at all. But what was surprising about it is that only 16% of those personal connections were from people that they saw often. Like my experience, I knew these people. I saw them all the time. the chance that they were going to generate something for me was relatively small. It just, I mean, it was just relatively small. Um, and so, I was, I, I use the phrase pushing a rope. It was very frustrating because I'm trying to start this law practice, and I, I have no idea. It's like if these people don't work out, what am I supposed to do? But the study goes on to show to say that 84% of people, uh, of the people who got their jobs from personal contacts, they were generally from people that they hardly knew or occasionally interacted with. And it starts to make sense that those people have entirely different networks than I than you or I might have. The people we don't really know. Think about um, I don't live in an apartment anymore, but I think about when I lived in an apartment, I kind of knew the people, around me, kind of knew, not really knew, but I kind of knew them. Okay, you're Johnny, you're a graphic designer. And that's all I knew. And I would say hi when we were coming and going and passing one another, but I didn't really know them. Likewise, there were people in this big building that I was in, and people I knew. It's the Chase building, Chase Bank in downtown Columbus. It was Bank One at the time, and there were people I knew who worked at Bank One, and I knew them that they got off on the 18th floor and I got off on the 19th floor, and I knew their name and said hello and was introduced to them, but I didn't really know them. And those people would have been great people for me to network with. Why? Because they have an entire world. When they got off on the 18th floor, they're dealing with people, information, and opportunities, many of which could have been relevant to me, some of which could be relevant to me. I didn't need a lot. And I could have really expanded my network as opposed to just continually trying to go to the people that I already know. What I want you to do is think about, if you can think back to, I would assume, depends how smart you are. Think for me, it was junior high. Maybe I wasn't very smart, but the Venn diagrams, the circles that kind of overlapped, and if you know people, and the people I worked with, our Venn diagrams pretty much overlapped. Not perfectly. My wife and I, our Venn diagrams overlap quite a bit. We know a lot of the same people. Now she goes to work and she knows people, and there's certainly a lot of people that I know that she doesn't know. But we have a lot of personal contacts, family. There's a great overlap. But like the guy on the 18th floor, our Venn diagrams didn't overlap much at all. And so there's a treasure trove of contacts that are out there from people like that, people that you really don't know well. Maybe it's your neighbor, enough that you know them well enough to say hi. You kind of know what they do, but you really don't know what they do. And those are good people to connect with. And so my advice to everyone um, is that you get out there and connect with those people that you don't really know. Just say, hey, I would love to have a cup of coffee. You know, or just go over to your neighbor with a six pack, and get to know them. What is it that you do? Very curious. I'm not saying go there to pitch them or anything like that. That's what I'm talking, but just kind of get to know. Okay, what are the opportunities that you're looking for? What are the needs that that you have? How about that person, if, depending upon where your office is, that, the person who's got an office near yours, they work every day. They work, they put their time in, whatever it is, 30, 40, 50, 60 hours. They're there, they're doing something. And, they're doing something. And so, you know, take them to coffee, figure it out. Just get to know them. It can be that simple. Um, but the point is that you should take the time to network outside your normal circles. Don't be like me, and many of you who are listening to this aren't like that. Take the time to reach out to that person that you might not know very well. LinkedIn's obviously just full of people, but even in your personal world, take the time to get to know those people. because there's a, again, there's a tremendous amount of opportunity there. And trust me, if you do this, you will, I don't want to say be overrun with contacts, but when you step outside that normal, that normal flow of your business, when you go to meet the person who's, got the office down the hall, or the neighbor, or, whoever it is, maybe it's somebody at church that you see them every week, their, name is Bob or Barbara, and you know them well enough to know that, and have a cup of coffee with them at a social. Maybe take the time. Hey, I'd love to learn about what it is that you do. How do you occupy the other 6 days of the week? You'll be surprised at the types of things that come from that simple little exercise.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.